Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I'm going to be reacting to another Bible project video. And this is a little different. This one's a overview of Genesis. So it's not going to be a topic. The previous video that I reacted to was a topic between heaven and earth. But this one's an overview of the actual Bible. So it's going to be pretty interesting. Let's just get right into it.
The book of Genesis is the first book of the Bible, and its storyline divides into two main parts. There's chapters 1 through 11, which tell the story of God and the whole world, and then there's chapters 12 through 50, which zoom in and tell the story of God and just one man, Abraham, and then his family. And these two parts are connected by a hinge story at the beginning of chapter 12. And this design, it gives us a clue to how to understand the message of the book as a whole and how it introduces the story of the whole Bible. So the book begins with God taking the disorder and the darkness described in the second sentence of the Bible, and God brings out of it order and beauty and goodness. He makes a world where life can flourish. And God makes these creatures called humans, or Adam in Hebrew. He makes them in his image, which has to do with their role and purpose in God's world. So the humans are made to be reflections of God's character out into the world, and they're appointed as God's representatives to rule his world on his behalf, which in context means to harness all of its potential, to care for it, and make it a place where even more life can flourish. God blesses the humans. It's a key word in this book, and he gives them a garden. It's like a place from which they begin starting to build this new world. Now, the key is that the humans have a choice about how they're going to go about building this world, and that's represented by the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Up till now, God has provided and defined what is good and what is not good. But now God is giving the humans the dignity and the freedom of a choice. Are they going to trust God's definition of good and evil, or are they going to seize autonomy and define good and evil for themselves? And the stakes are really high. To rebel against God is to embrace death, because you're turning away from the giver of life himself. This is represented by the tree of life. And so in chapter 3, a mysterious figure, a snake, enters.
It's crazy how we were put in this earth to rule over it, to multiply. I mean, it was just, beautiful. I wonder if, because everyone knows the story, even if you're not Christian, you know the story. Adam and Eve, they eat the fruit, and sin entered earth through them. But I wonder what would have happened if Adam and Eve didn't eat the fruit. Would we live forever? Because back in the day, they lived hundreds of years. I think the most was 960 something. So they lived a long time. If they hadn't eaten the fruit that they weren't supposed to, what would have happened? Where would we be?
Into the story. The snake's given no introduction other than it's a creature that God made, and it becomes clear that it's a creature in rebellion against God, and it wants to lead the humans into rebellion and their death. The snake tells a different story about the tree and the choice. It says that seizing the knowledge of good and evil are not going to bring death, that it's actually the way to life and becoming like God themselves. Now, the irony of this is tragic, because we know the humans, they're already like God. They were made to reflect God's
image of
God. But instead of trusting God, the humans seize autonomy. They take the knowledge of good and evil for themselves, and in an instant.
And I think we still do that to this day. God is always giving us. He's always trying to help us out and bringing us to his presence. And us as human beings, we just decide our own things. We want to do whatever we want. And it brings upon us, consequences that we don't want to go through. And when we do go through those consequences, we complain to God like, oh, why am I going through this? But have you thought to yourself, what did you do to deserve that consequence? And what would you do after you're in that consequence? Are you going to, keep rebelling against God, or are you going to God's presence and asking for forgiveness, repenting, and being close to God? I think that's a lot of us struggle with that. I mean, I know I do sometimes. Um, it's just, I guess, sin is just our human nature. We want to sin. It's our natural state of being, sin. Um, but I think God is merciful, and no matter how much deep sin you're in, you can always go to God and He can forgive you. But yep.
Spirals out of control. The first casualty is human relationships. The man and the woman, they suddenly realize how vulnerable they are. Now, they can't even trust each other. And so they make clothes and they hide their bodies from one another. The second casualty is that intimacy between God and the humans is lost. So they go and run and hide from God, and then when God finds them, they start this game of blame shifting about who rebelled first. Now, right here, the story stops, and there's a series of short poems where God declares to the snake and then to the humans the tragic consequences of their actions. God first tells the snake that despite its apparent victory, it is destined for defeat, to eat dust. God promises that one day a seed, or a descendant, will come from the woman who's going to deliver a lethal strike to the snake's head. Which sounds like great news, but this victory is going to come with a cost, because the snake too will deliver a lethal strike to the descendant's heel as it's being crushed. It's a very mysterious promise of this wounded victor. But in the flow of the story so far, you see this is an act of God's grace. The humans, they've just rebelled, and what does God do? He promises to rescue them. But this doesn't erase the consequences of the humans' decision. So God informs them that now every aspect of their life together, at home and out in the field, it's going to be fraught with grief and pain because of the rebellion, all leading to their death. From here, the story then spirals downward. Chapters 3 through 11, they trace the widening ripple effect of the rebellion and of human relationships fracturing at every level. So there's a story about two brothers, Cain and Abel. Cain's so jealous of his brother that he wants to murder him. And God warns him not to give in to the temptation, but he does anyway. He murders him in the field. So Cain then goes on to build a city where violence and oppression reign. And this is all epitomized in the story of Lamech. He's the first man in the Bible to have more than one wife. He's accumulating them like property. And then he goes on to sing a short song about how he's more violent and vengeful than Cain ever was. After this, we get an odd story about the sons of God, which could refer to evil angelic beings, or it could refer to ancient kings who claimed that they descended from the gods. And like Lamech, they acquire as many wives as they wanted, and they produce the Nephilim, these great warriors of old. Whichever view is right, the point is that humans are building kingdoms that fill God's world with violence and even more corruption. In response, we're told that God is broken with grief. Humanity is ruining his good world, and they're ruining each other. And so out of a passion to protect the goodness of his world, he washes it clean of humanity's evil with the great flood.
That's crazy.
But he protects one.
It's crazy how how evil the world was, to the point where God was like, bro, I'm done with y'all. And the flood came, killed everybody except Noah, his wife, I think his two sons and their wives. But how this was so early in the creation. Like, I don't know how long it's been, probably a couple hundred years. But it was just so early into the creation that God made, and people were just so evil already. But that's wild.
Blameless human, Noah, and his family, and he commissions him as a new Adam. He repeats the divine blessing and commissions him to go out into the world. And so our hopes are really high, but then Noah fails too, and also in a garden. He goes and he plants a vineyard, and he gets drunk out of his mind. And then one of his sons,
That man could not wait to get out of that boat, huh? Like, man, as soon as I'm out this ark, I'm drinking.
Ham, does something shameful to his father in the tent. And so here we have our new Adam, naked and ashamed, just like the first.
Damn,
The
that's
downward
true.
spiral begins again. It all
It's
leads
all
to
over.
the foundation of the city of Babylon. The people of ancient Mesopotamia, they come together around this new technology they have, the brick. And they can make cities and towers bigger and faster than anybody's ever done before. And they want to build a new kind of tower that will reach up to the gods, and they will make a great name for themselves. It's an image of human rebellion and arrogance. It's the garden rebellion now writ large. And so God humbles their pride and scatters them. Now this is a diverse group.
I think this is when the Tower of Babylon, when God confuses their language, this is where other languages come from, I believe. That's crazy. Like, to think about it, that in an instant, just God created languages like that, and people could not understand each other anymore. That's crazy.
Group of stories, but you can see they're all exploring the same basic point. God keeps giving humans the chance
Yeah.
to do the right thing with his world,
And we kept
humans
failing.
keep ruining it. These stories are making a claim that we live in a good world that we have turned bad. That we've all chosen to define good and evil for ourselves, and so we all contribute to this world of broken relationships, leading
True.
to conflict and violence and ultimately death. But there's hope. God promised that one day a descendant would come, the wounded victor who will defeat evil at its source. And so despite humanity's evil, God is determined to bless and rescue his world. And so the big question, of course, is what is God going to do? And the next story, The Hinge, offers the answer. But for now, that's what Genesis 1 through 11 is all about.
Yo, this video was awesome. So, obviously, the wounded victor, I believe, is Jesus. He is the one who is the descendant of the woman, of course, and is going to crush evil at its source. But that, like, think about it. Jesus was prophesied way back since Adam and Eve. And hundreds, thousands of years later, Jesus came, but it was prophesied long time ago. And it's also important to know how, I think a good point is, a lot of times us as humans, we say, oh, if God was good, then why does he allow this? If God is good, why does he allow that? And why did God create an evil world? Bro, when he first created Earth and first created humans, he made them perfect. He created a good Earth. When he created everything that he created, he saw that it was good. So from the beginning, God gave us everything. We ruled over animals. We ruled over everything. We didn't have to work for it. He gave us eternal life, and we're the ones who decide good and evil for our own. So it's not God is evil and God allows that. It's just humankind, humans in itself. We're just evil. We're sinful. We hate. We lust. We create wars. How is the world supposed to be good when we, the ones who are in this earth, are evil in our hearts? It doesn't make any sense for us to blame God for everything that bad that happens. But it is our choice to decide what to do when that situation comes. And I think that's a beautiful thing. You're the one who decides, you know? Hey, this was the first part of Genesis 1 through 11. I don't know if I'm going to record the second part today, but I will probably record it for tomorrow. If you guys are enjoying these videos, give it a thumbs up, comment. I don't know. Give me any suggestions to any videos that could be good for me to react to. But that is it. God bless.